A report on the review of transfer pricing development in Africa and released by Anderson Tax. Now, the focus of the report is to analyze, review, and examine the level of compliance requirements and audit process as key, talking about sub-Saharan African countries. Well, I had an exclusive interview evaluating transfer pricing in Africa and level of compliance with Senior Manager Anderson Tax, Amaka Samuel Onyani. Take a listen. Tell us more about transfer pricing. It's new to some people.
So transfer pricing basically is how related parties conduct their business. Okay. So if a company A and company B are related, the price at which they buy or sell from each other should be what we call at arm's length. The simple layman's terms for arm's length is what we call market price.
That is what it is.
Basically.
Now I'm looking at these countries you focused on. 6 countries now.
Yes.
Why do 6 countries? Nigeria, South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania. Why these countries?
So transfer pricing has been around for decades. It's more evolved in the international market, but in Africa, it's taking Africa a bit more time to catch up with, developing the different regulations that are required to implement, transfer pricing, in Nigeria. So while we focused on these 6 countries, basically, if you think about South Africa has had transfer pricing regulations since 1996. The next is, I believe, is Kenya, which is 2006. The rest of the other countries are just catching up since 2010. So really the focus is on countries that have domesticated transfer pricing regulation and are a bit more specific, or should I say more proactive in ensuring that their tax base are protected.
Let's look at level of compliance now in a country like Nigeria and some of these African countries. How has it been?
I would say, if I use Nigeria, for example, when it started in 2012, the level of compliance, mainly because it's new in Nigeria, the level of compliance was relatively low. But in 2018, having introduced administrative penalties, the level of compliance kind of shoot up astronomically as a result of, penalties. Nobody exactly wants to, impose or incur penalties in their own company. So the level of compliance, I would say, is relatively high in Nigeria, even compared to some other jurisdictions. But it depends on, how aggressive, or should I say, how proactive the tax authorities are in those jurisdictions.
Because I was at that Pali where this document was actually launched.
Yes.
And the discussions also leveled around that this could help increase foreign direct investments into any country. For a country like Nigeria, that is really, we know we need investments to come in. How will this translate into more money?
Really, the issue is that multinational companies want to come into jurisdictions where they can have high returns. But while they can have high returns, they want to also have some level of certainty. They want to know, how would my taxes be calculated so that I can pay the right taxes. Multinational companies want to pay the right taxes. They don't want to pay any more or any less. So with the introduction of transfer pricing, prior to the introduction of a regulation, there was a bit of an uncertainty on how exactly you determine this arm's length price, this market price I'm talking about. But with the introduction of a regulation, there's a bit more certainty as to the different methodologies to arrive at the price. So definitely the introduction of a regulation is a good thing and could attract foreign direct investment.
So what has been happening before now? I would like to know, before this came on board, what was happening? What was the system then? Were they just coming in, pulling out profits?
No. Multinational companies, definitely, they are good corporate bodies, so they want to do the right thing. The only issue is that there's a requirement within the company income tax that just states that it should be at arm's length. But there was no clear guidance as to how to determine the arm's length. The onus of proving that what you've done is right is on the taxpayer. So there was no clear guidance for them to say, okay, this is how we arrived at the market price from a Nigerian perspective. Now, with the introduction of a regulation, we provide different methodologies and procedures for you to determine an arm's length price. Taxpayers can clearly show to tax authorities that what they've been trying to do all this while, even before the regulations came into place, are reasonable from an arm's length perspective.
So finally, what are your expectations as we move on with this report? What would you try to achieve with this report?
Really, what we are trying to do is sensitize multinational companies that intend on coming into African countries. What are the different requirements? What are the risks? How does it impact your business? Give them information so that they can make good decisions in terms of how they intend to enter into the African market. I mean, right now we restricted it to 6 companies. This is the maiden edition, but we intend to expand it into more countries as their transfer pricing regulations develop in those jurisdictions. So we hope to give adequate knowledge and information to MNEs.
Senior Manager with Anderson Tax, thank you very much. Amaka Onyeani, thank you very much for spending your time with us.
Thank you for having me.